They pushed her to the back row, laughed at her cane, and left her name off the obituary. But when she pulled out one letter, everything they thought they knew about the man in that casket unraveled before their eyes. By the end of that funeral, the woman they all tried to ignore would be the only one anyone remembered. A lone funeral director in a slate gray suit slides the casket into place for the third time, trying to make it sit level on the worn carpet beneath the pulpit. Each push rattles the cheap metal stand and rustles a wilted spray of white lilies that no one has bothered to freshen since dawn. The blooms slump like exhausted hands. Half their petals already litter the hardwood floor. For the 67 mourners packing Shiloh Missionary Baptist in Huntsville, Alabama, it is just another adjustment, hardly worth a glance. For Miss Ernestine Lewis, it is the first insult of the day. She is 71, a retired night shift nurse whose back still remembers every code blue it ever bent over. She wears her old hospital pin, a silver lamp of Florence Nightingale, pinned beside a brooch shaped like an angel's wing. Her knees ache inside low kitten heels. Her tongue aches more because Ernestine has never tolerated sloppy work from anyone, least of all the living men paid to honor the dead. But when she huffs and folds her arms, the two teenage cousins in the pew ahead of her whisper, "There she go again." Their braided heads bump as they giggle behind programs that list Ernestine 4 lines below the caterer and 5 below honorable guests. She hears them anyway. 36 years in trauma wards taught her to catch delirious whispers through morphine fog. A childish snicker as loud as a siren. The laughter floats over her shoulder to a cluster of adult nieces. One murmurs, "Lord, Aunt Ernie actin' like she the widow. Can't nobody tell her nothin'." A second replies, "You know she always made herself the hero." They wag fingers the way nurses wag IV tubing, expertly, pointedly, accusing Ernestine of the same sin spoken behind every curtain she ever drew, exaggerating her role. She was just a nurse. Doctors did the saving. She was just a sister. The real family handled business. Ernestine clenches the handle of her cane and tries to focus on the polished cedar box up front. It holds Deacon Martin Lewis, her older brother by 13 months, Sunday school teacher, junior college bookkeeper, pillar of the community, according to the printed eulogy. The words leave no room for the Martin who stole Ernestine's college savings one summer, or the Martin who hid his cirrhosis diagnosis until it devoured his liver. Those truths never made bulletins. Motion at the aisle. A broad-shouldered man in a burgundy blazer glides down the center like he owns the sanctuary, scanning for empty spots. He spies the only open seat in the second row, Ernestine's reserved seat, marked by her purse. Without hesitation, he plucks the handbag off the cushion, drops it at her feet, and sits. A quick dismissive smile, the kind airline passengers give each other before ignoring armrest etiquette forever. Ernestine's jaw flexes. The cousins titter harder. Pastor Grant emerges from the side door, microphone squealing. "Saints, we are gathered to celebrate a faithful servant of God, a man of limitless kindness and boundless generosity." Ernestine's eyes narrow at limitless. She loved her brother, but his kindness had definite limits, drawn with a ruler across her life more than once. The congregation nods along, painting Martin into a stained glass Saint No Flaw may pierce. The house lights dim for a slideshow. A marching band brass fanfare plays. The screen shows Martin in cap and gown, Martin winning Kiwanis Awards, Martin coaching youth baseball. At slide 9, the next image glitches, then snaps to a grainy snapshot of Martin outside a neon-lit bar called the Royal Ace, arm around a woman no one in the church has seen before. The file name appears in the corner. Vegas, 2014. Someone coughs. The cousin whispers, That ain't Auntie. A hurried deacon smashes the spacebar and the slideshow jumps to Martin baptizing children. Ernestine feels a hush ripple, as though the whole building held a breath that smelled like cheap gin and desert dust. Midway through the next hymn, the brass stand supporting Martin's portrait wiggles on its hinge. Nobody notices until a sudden vibration, the bass speaker under the rostrum, makes the framed photograph tremble forward and fall face first onto the marble step. Glass shatters. Gasps scatter. Ernestine watches the choir flinch while ushers scramble with towels. He always did hate his own spotlight, she thinks, hearing Martin's half-drunk voice in her head. Turn that fool camera off, Ernie. Her mind slides backward 38 years to a Sears parking lot, July sun ricocheting off chrome bumpers. Martin, newlywed, brand new Camaro, windows down, radio blasting the Commodores. Ernestine, approached, wanting to show him her acceptance letter to nursing school in Atlanta. Before she could speak, Martin leaned out, loud laughter spraying malt liquor breath, and shouted to his boys, "Look at Lil' Sis. Thinking she gonna be somebody with that cheap piece of paper?" The parking lot roared. She shrank behind an Oldsmobile, acceptance letter clutched so tight the ink bled onto her palm. The memory burns again as if asphalt still scalds her flats. Back in the pew, she shifts her weight, preparing to rise when the floor microphone is offered to family members who wish to share. The cousins nudge each other. This ought to be good. Ernestine stands, cane steady, and clears her throat. She begins softly. Martin was my... Feedback squeals. Pastor Grant winces. The sound man waves frantically. Ernestine's words fade beneath burbling static. "Speak up," someone shouts. A child giggles, and Pastor, ever gracious, touches her elbow, smiling that kind of clerical smile that is apology dressed in Sunday clothes. "We'll circle back, Sister Ernestine. Amen." She sits, heart pounding in her ears, words trapped behind aging vocal cords. The teenager snorts. She shook. Ernestine steels herself. They misread my tremble, she thinks. It isn't fear. It is fury drumming up her spine like a code blue alarm. The funeral director strolls to the podium, clearing his throat. At the request of the immediate family, we will now read a preliminary statement regarding Deacon Lewis's last testament. Envelopes appear, ivory, embossed. Ernestine blinks. Preliminary? Martin's will was always to be read privately at the house, after burial. Pastor shows surprise too, but the director continues, dividing envelopes to nieces, nephews, even the giggling cousins. Ernestine receives nothing. Burgundy blazer man actually yawns. That does it. Ernestine pushes to her feet, cane thumping. Y'all handing out a man's legacy like funeral fans, and you forgot the one person who kept him breathing long enough to make a will. Heads swivel. Burgundy blazer frowns. Pastor tries a calming hand gesture. Ernestine ignores it, fingers spearing the burial committee's table. Don't act like I'm some stray off the street. I wiped Martin's blood, paid his dialysis copay, drove him to rehab, and sat by his bed when the rest of y'all was too busy talking smack on Facebook. Whispers burst into voices. Protest, defense, shock. Ernestine's cane shakes as she lifts a folded note from her purse, the ink nearly rubbed away by constant rereads. She does not open it yet, only holds it high enough for the front rows to see. He wrote this the night he passed, and you best believe it changes everything you think you know about him, and about me. In the sudden hush that follows, the cousins stop snickering. Burgundy blazer leans forward. A toddler hushes herself. Even Pastor Grant lowers the mic. The florist's van outside backfires. A small distant bang that feels like a starter pistol. Ernestine closes her fist around the note, fire in her eyes steadier than any morphine drip. Somewhere inside that clenched palm lies the first stitch of a family pulled apart by secrets, and, if she has her way, sewn together before sunset. The casket no longer rocks. The flowers still droop. But for the first time all morning, every face in Shiloh Missionary Baptist is turned toward the nurse nobody wanted to hear, and the silence is finally expectant rather than dismissive. She clears her throat once more. This time no one dares laugh. The note in Ernestine's hand trembles like a pulse under pressure, but her voice, when it rises again, no longer shakes. This time she projects not through the mic, but through memory, like a nurse barking orders in a code blue room. He wrote this to me the night before he passed. The room quiets. Even the cousins sit up straighter. And I wasn't going to share it. I told myself this family wouldn't care what I had to say. Y'all made that clear years ago. But he did care. And I owe it to him to say this. Pastor Grant glances at the tech booth. The mic is still off, but nobody cares now. The audience leans in. Ernestine unfolds the paper, creases soft from too many readings. Ernie, I lied for most of my life. Not to you, but about you. I told folks you were bitter, nosy, hard to deal with. That was easier than admitting I was jealous. You got out. You made a life. You didn't need saving. But I did. A low collective inhale rolls across the pews. Ernestine continues, her voice quiet but cutting. He said, "Tell them I was wrong. I should have given you your flowers while you were alive to hold them." Suddenly, a middle-aged niece stands, face flushed, hands raised. "This isn't the time or place," she blurts. Ernestine turns her eyes on her like a surgeon preparing a scalpel. "If not now, when?" Y'all already gave him a halo and skipped the truth. But before the niece can retort, another cousin stands, this one gripping a manila envelope. She's shaking. "We have other documents," she says. "Martin wrote a different letter to the family, too." A murmur ripples again. Pastor Grant raises a hand to settle the room. Ernestine waits, watching as the cousin unfolds a typed page. The words start polished. Mentions of love, legacy, spiritual peace, but halfway through, a line catches everyone off guard. "I told a lot of stories to protect my image," it reads, "but there's only one person who saw me die in peace, and that's Ernestine." Ernestine steps forward now, uninvited, unchecked. He had cirrhosis, and he wouldn't go to no doctor. So guess who held his hand through withdrawal? Guess who changed his sheets when he soiled himself? Guess who gave him his last bath and covered his body before the ambulance came? A hush lands like snow. It wasn't no pastor. It wasn't his real family. It was me. And I didn't do it for a thank you. I did it because he was mine. The funeral director frowns and makes a discreet motion to security. A man in black steps forward. Pastor moves fast, intercepts. "Let her speak," the Reverend says, voice low but firm. "We owe her that." Security fades back. Ernestine sighs and shakes her head. "I didn't come to ruin nobody's memory. Lord knows Martin left enough pain behind. But he also left truth. And I'm tired of swallowing it just to make people comfortable." A pause. She pulls a small device from her pocket, a voice recorder, old but intact. She presses play. "Ernie, if I don't wake up tomorrow, tell them I ain't scared no more. You were right, about all of it." His voice crackles and fades. The silence afterward isn't awkward, it's reverent. Then Ernestine does something no one expects. She closes her eyes and begins to pray, not loudly, not showy, just soft enough that the room leans in. "Lord, forgive us for the masks we wore, for the love we didn't give in time, and for the family we failed to see." A child in the second row starts crying. Her mother gently pats her shoulder. The teenager who giggled earlier wipes a tear discreetly. Burgundy blazer man leans forward and finally listens. As Ernestine opens her eyes, the mood has shifted. No longer judgmental, now curious. Pastor Grant turns to her. Would you like to continue, Sister Lewis? Ernestine nods and adjusts her brooch. Before she speaks again, a small water bottle appears in front of her, held out by the same niece who accused her minutes ago. The woman's eyes are red. She offers no words. Just water. Ernestine accepts it with a nod. Then, in the most unexpected gesture of the morning, the woman who insulted her earlier steps forward and adjusts the mic stand. Ernestine leans in. Y'all keep saying he was a man of the people. That might be true, but he was also just a man. And you don't have to pretend someone was perfect to love them. You just gotta be honest enough to grow from who they really were. Murmurs of agreement. Nods. Even the choir members start to shift on the pew, readying something. And then, from the front, without a single cue, the organist begins to play. No hymn number announced, no instruction given, just music. Her favorite hymn. It is well with my soul. The entire church joins in, slowly, imperfectly, but powerfully. As Ernestine turns toward the casket, her voice now rested, her heart lighter, she glances across rows of relatives who, for the first time in decades, seem like they're seeing her clearly. She doesn't smile. She exhales. The healing is just beginning. The service ends without formal dismissal. No benediction, no final song list, just the sound of people lingering, as if held in place by the gravity of a truth they hadn't expected to carry home. Ernestine sits again, but this time the space around her isn't cold. One grandchild leans on her shoulder. A niece who hadn't spoken in 10 years hands her a tissue, and the baby who cried through most of the service? Quiet now, eyes wide, watching her like she's the only person that matters. Outside the church, under a gray Alabama sky, mourners gather around the gravesite. The wind picks up as the casket is lowered. When the first handful of dirt hits the lid, there's no hollow thud, just a soft thump, like a door closing gently after a long, difficult night. Ernestine steps forward. She clutches a folded photo, not the one from the slideshow, but an older one. Her and Martin, arms around each other in scrubs from the hospital's 1987 Christmas party. Both tired, both smiling, both caring more than they said. She bends and places it atop the casket. He didn't just leave a church legacy, she whispers. He left me pieces I had to hold together when no one else would. Behind her, the wind stills. At the repast, held in the basement fellowship hall, the mood has softened into something more familiar. Half laughter, half reflection, all layered with the tension of relatives relearning each other. Ernestine sits at the end of a folding table beside the potato salad. A long line of people snakes toward her, not for food, but for words. A young man in his 20s approaches first. He's got Martin's cheekbones, Ernestine realizes. I'm Damon, he says. They always said you were the mean one. But I think I get it now. She smiles gently. Mean don't mean unloving. Mean just means tired of being ignored. He laughs, quietly, and nods. Later, her great-granddaughter Ariel kneels beside her folding chair. Grandma Ernie, why didn't you just yell at everyone before? Ernestine chuckles, sipping sweet tea from a foam cup. Because, baby, truth don't always need volume. It just needs space. She reaches into her purse and pulls out the original letter. Creased, worn, now sacred. You keep this, she says, handing it over. Don't let him write nobody out of history. Not me. Not you. Ariel hugs it like scripture. Across the room, a young pastor's assistant climbs onto a chair and taps a glass. "Y'all, if you don't mind, we'd like Sister Ernestine to close us in a word." Gasps flutter, some cheer. Even Pastor Grant lifts both hands like he's caught the Spirit. Ernestine waves him off. "Oh, hush. I ain't no preacher." She stands anyway, clears her throat. The room silences. "If y'all learned anything today, I hope it's this. Being family don't mean being perfect. It means holding on, even when it gets ugly, and saying what needs to be said before someone else has to say it over a casket." A few murmurs of "Amen." Martin was wrong about a lot, but he was right about one thing. He said I kept us together. He said I was the knot. And I ain't saying that to brag. I'm saying that so maybe one of y'all decides to be a knot too. Tie things, not tear them. She sits down. The applause is quiet, respectful, lasting. As cleanup begins, the slideshow is restarted on loop. This time someone has added 2 new photos. One of Martin and Ernestine laughing in a hospital hallway, one of Ernestine alone, holding a newborn, Ariel. Her name is listed in bold now. Ernestine Lewis, RN, sister, nurse, caretaker, truth-teller. The cousins stop mid-sweep and look up. One of them whispers, "We should have put her in from the start." The other nods. Outside, the sun breaks through the clouds for the first time all day. Ernestine steps into the light with her cane in one hand and a paper plate covered in foil in the other. A toddler runs past her yelling, "Mama Ernie!" She turns and sees a row of kids chasing bubbles in the grass, the wind carrying their laughter like freedom. She glances to the side and sees a young woman recording her quietly with a phone. "What you doing, baby?" The woman smiles, documenting the part they almost skipped. Ernestine chuckles and keeps walking. As she reaches her old Toyota parked under a shade tree, she pauses, looks back at the church, the family she kept showing up for, the people who finally saw her, the truth that refused to stay buried with her brother. She doesn't need applause. She doesn't need a statue. But today, she got heard. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Sometimes, it's not the person with the mic who changes the room. It's the one who never left it, even when no one thanked her for staying. She didn't rewrite the story to be liked. She told the truth to make it whole. And finally, they listened.